Hi, welcome to the OTRS webinar. My name is John Coggins. I'm the Global Business Relationship Manager, and today I'm joined by my colleague Lucas Smalsing of the Consulting Group. Lucas is going to go into more detail in this webinar about the management areas of OTRS 8. But mainly he's going to focus on the knowledge management, service management, the customer management, assets management, and how the search works now in OTRS 8. If you have any questions after the webinar is over, please feel free to reach out to us at sales@otrs.com. Enjoy.
Thank you, John. All right, so I will talk about these areas on the right today. So we have the knowledge management, the service management, the customer management, and the asset management. And in the end, I will focus on the search, so our dynamic search we are using over here. I'd like to start with the knowledge management right now. So what's the knowledge management about? The knowledge management in OTRS is to manage your knowledge. So very clear here. But what does it mean? Basically, you are creating articles of recoming issues. So for example, if you have an issue, every time someone has problems by implementing his calendar into his, for example, Outlook or in another application. And you notice that this issue is always, every week you get tickets which are referring to that issue. So this is a point where it might make sense to create a knowledge base article. What's a knowledge base article? So let's just do it. So we will create a new one. And we will call this one, for example, calendar import problems. So we will create a knowledge base article about this issue. So always when someone is trying to import his calendar, it leads to problems in his Outlook, or he's not able to do it, basically. So we can now add some keywords under which this knowledge base article should be found. So we can, for example, do calendar, import, and Outlook, Apple Mail, or Apple iCal, and yeah, let's keep it like this. So the keywords are very important here, since the keywords will include where the article will be shown. I will show you that later. So as soon as you enter a keyword at a place, it goes for the external interface as well as the internal interface, the article will be suggested, but I will show you that. The category you will always have so the knowledge base or the knowledge management in OTRS consists of a tree view. So you can imagine it as you have different categories and you have subcategories, and this is how it is built. So you can always add different categories to your system, have subcategories, and within these categories you have the different knowledge base articles. So now you need to select in which category you would like to create this knowledge base article. I will just create it in the miscellaneous category. The next thing you can select is the state. So for example, you can decide to use this one to switch between the external interface, which means it will be shown for customers and agents. So the knowledge base article can be read by customers or agents. The internal is then, it's just an internal article. It cannot be read by customers or public. And public means it can read by all, which means it doesn't matter if it is an agent or a customer user. Everyone on the external interface can read this knowledge base article. So that's why it's called public. External always includes that the customer needs to be a registered customer user that has logged into your interface. So that's the condition here. Validity is always the possibility to set an article to valid or invalid. You can always move, for example, when you want to maintain your knowledge base article to change something, you can switch it to invalid temporarily, so other agents know, okay, someone is working on this article, but it's not invalid in general, which means it will come back valid very soon. Language is the language selection. Of course, you can create knowledge base articles in different languages, which can be filtered. So later on, when we will talk about the search, you will see it that there's even a filter criteria to, yeah, just filter for a different language. Attachment is the opportunity to add an attachment to your knowledge base article. So feel free to add different articles here to your, so different attachments to your knowledge base article. The symptom is the possibility to add, for example, or to describe how the error or what's the symptom of the issue. So for example, in our case, we say, okay, the calendar import is not working. We receive an error message. And what's the problem? Calendar can't be imported. And now, so we have the symptom, which is public. We have the problem, which is public as well. And we have the solution. So now we will describe what he needs to do. For example, step 1, or first step, add new. Then second step, choose, and so on. So just imagine here's the solution described, so what he needs to do. And then we have another section which is called comment for internal use. So this is just for you and other agents that can be used. So for example, you can add some hints here. What can be done is, for example, you do your own initials. For example, my initials are LSM, and I will call it initial create of KBA, so of the knowledge base article on the, let's say, 20th or 19th. So, and now we will create the article. So as you can see now, the knowledge base article has been created. And we see the different areas where we've added the information. So we have the calendar import problems as a title. We have the symptom, which is that we are receiving an error message after importing a calendar. We can, of course, always add this information. So if I just know, oh, okay, I forgot to add this information, you can, of course, edit the knowledge base article and say here, after importing a calendar file, for example. And this is how the knowledge base article is structured. So we have the symptom, problem, solution, and properties. The properties includes the FAQ article number. So you can very quickly copy paste this one. We have the category. We have the state, which is internal or external or public. We have the keywords, so calendar, import, Outlook, Apple, iCal. I will show you that in a few moments. We have the ratings, since in the end you can rate what if this article was helpful for you or not. So you can decide yes or no. Of course, this is for customers possible as well. And we have other information like the language when it has been created. Of course, we can always, again, configure this screen, say, okay, we don't want to see some information deleted from the screen. So this is very much up to you, and you can switch the columns and yeah, basically design it as you like again. Down below, you can see my internal comment. If you would like to have that up here, that's possible as well. Just open the layout configuration and move the comment, the internal comment, up to the other areas. So perfectly fine as well. But I like to have the comment a bit more down below, so I will reset to default, and the widget will be moved back to its original location. So this is basically how you create a knowledge base article. I showed you already, you can edit this knowledge base article, or you can link it, which means you can, for example, select a certain ticket. Let's choose the network problems as well as tickets, or let's do an open one. So you can select your different filters, and I will do the printer issues. Let's choose this one. And now you can see that the ticket has been linked to the knowledge base article. And when you enter the ticket, the knowledge base article has been added as well. So you can see now we have 3 objects that are linked to this ticket here. We have another ticket that is linked as a parent ticket. We have the knowledge base article, which is linked as the article I've just created. And we have the appointment, the on-site printer fix, which we added on our last session, so at the last webinar. So we can see here now every object that has been added, and we can, of course, jump between these 2 links. So this is how to create and link a knowledge base article. You can delete it, and you can view the history. So you will see that I have created it and that I've updated it later. So this will be shown in the history of the knowledge base article. And you can always print the knowledge base article to hand it out. So for example, here we will print it as a PDF file. And now you can see the information that has been added to the knowledge base article. That's basically it, what you can do here. What I'd like to show you now is the effect of these keywords. So in the future, as soon as I enter, for example, a new ticket, a phone call, and so let's imagine someone called, car customer, and he asked or was talking about, and now take a closer look to the section down below here. So as soon as I type in, for example, calendar, now we will see relevant knowledge has been found. So I can expand this section here and we'll see the linked knowledge base article. So even before I start typing in the body, so describing the issue or trying to help my caller, I can view this knowledge base article and take a look if it might be the solution for the problem and might help my customer. So it can be a very nice tool to help your agents or your colleagues by showing basically these different knowledge base articles and very quickly solve problems. So this is a very nice function here, and it works as well on the external interface. So for your customers as well, as soon as they create a ticket on the external interface and they would type in one of the keywords, the knowledge base article would be suggested on the right side. So OTRS will ask your customer, have you already checked this knowledge base article? This relevant knowledge base article has been found. And maybe it might help you. So this might prevent customer users of even opening or creating new tickets. So you will reduce your amount of tickets. Okay, that's it for the knowledge management. Let's take a closer look at the service management. So there are different services in OTRS, and you can of course add your own services. A service is always like, yeah, like the service you provide for your customer in the ticket. So the ticket service can be, for example, Outlook or Exchange Server. So what are you doing? What service do you provide by solving his issue? Is it what does it concern? Like I said, the Exchange Server or VPN connection or something like this. So different topics that can be chosen. And through our service level management feature, we can make a relation between services and the CMDB and your priorities. So let me show you. So here you can see right now we have an incident state of different services. We have the name of the services. We have the criticality and the type and the change date. So let's go through this. The incident state is always if the service is affected by, for example, a CMDB item or an or a top level category service. So if you have like a top level service and a sub category or a sub service, and you have a warning, for example, or an incident in one of your services, it will of course affect the other one as well. This can be read in very detail in our documentation how these different relations work. So it's the same for configuration items. If you have an incident configuration item which is dependent, so if there's a dependency of a configuration item, it will be shown in your service management as well. So it will, yeah, just state it as you can see it here as a warning state. So if I click on this service, so let's check these different services. We have right here an incident state right now. So a warning state. We see who created the service and when it has been changed and which type. So the type is basically just a variable. So the service type is just a variable for your statistics. So you can use it for statistic ways. There's no functionality behind it. And we have the criticality. And this is very important. The criticality is the like priority of this service. So for example, an Exchange Server service would have a much higher criticality than, for example, Microsoft Word, since the Exchange Server is more essential to more users than Microsoft Word for maybe one user. So each and every service has its own criticality. And through a criticality matrix, you can combine this criticality of the service with your priority. So for example, you can, in a very indirect way, let your customer choose his priority for his ticket. So when he opens a new ticket on the external interface and he needs to decide between different. So for example, he will choose the service, as I told you, Exchange Server. And then he has another field, the impact, where he should say, okay, how big is the impact? So is it only for me an issue or for the whole company and no one is able to work? You can generate in the background a priority. So through the criticality metrics, you have on the left side the criticality of the service that has been selected and the impact. And you can then decide, okay, if I have criticality 1 and the impact 2, it should result in a priority of 3. So there are different combinations possible, and that's why it's very useful to use these criticalities, or yeah, just have these different services. And you can, of course, associate the service to, for example, SLAs as well. So here you can see it has been associated to the full service outage, calendar, or SLA in this case. And there you can see through the different SLAs what's behind this SLA. So an SLA is always telling you for a service how fast we need to provide the service. So for example, what's the first response time? So you can see it here. The first response time is always how fast do I have to be to react on to the ticket. So how much time can I take to respond to the ticket? For example, in this case, 20 minutes. After 80% of these 20 minutes, I'd like to notify the agents that they should take care or response on the ticket. So when is the first response time met? It is met when you create an external article, which can be, for example, an phone call outbound, an email outbound, a reply, an external note. So yeah, basically different possibilities what you can enter and choose. So of course, if you close the ticket, it will be the first response time will be met as well. So that's possible too. The update time is the time between the communication. So when you, for example, answer your customer and give him provide some information, and you set the update time, in this case it is set to 2 hours, the timer will count down from these 2 hours until your customer answers. So the customer has 2 hours now to answer until the ticket will escalate. So all these service level agreement times will trigger an escalation of the ticket, which means you will be notified that the ticket has escalated. You will see it in a different widget. We saw it in the last webinar on the dashboard, and there are different functionalities behind an escalating ticket. So in this case, we have 2 hours. So the customer can take up to 2 hours to answer us. And if he don't do it, we can always decide to, for example, write him again. So after we will be notified again after 80%, and we can notify the customer, dear customer, please respond to our ticket, otherwise we can't help you or investigate the problem anymore. The next, so this was the time between communication. The timer will always be resetted. So it is not a once timer as it is with the first response time. You have this timer just once, since it is the first response time. And after that, the timer is, you can meet the first response time of 20 minutes in this case, or you don't do, but the timer is just once. The update time is over and over again. So as soon as you add an article or a communication to the customer, it will be set to 2 hours, and then it will count down. If your customer answers, it will be resetted again to 2 hours and will count down again. So it will be the whole time over and over again until you close the ticket. The third escalation you can use is the solution time. So you can have here for about, I don't know, 4 hours. So this is the time between the ticket create point and the first ticket close, which means it doesn't matter what you do in the meantime, you just have some time to finish and close the ticket, which in this case is just 4 hours. After 80%, again, you will be notified. Of course, you can reduce that to 70% or 90% as you like, but in general, your task is to finish and solve the ticket within 4 hours. Okay, that's it for the service level management so far. and for the service information as well. So as you can see here, it can be linked with configuration items as well. So we have right now linked an ERP server. Before I will continue with the asset management of the CMDB, so you see here the link configuration items. I just would like to summarize what we just saw. So we saw the services. We have we talked about the incident state, which is just which can be affected by related objects, which can be SLAs or CMDB items or top-level services. We have the name, of course, of the service. We have the criticality, which can be used for the criticality metrics. We have the type, which can be used for statistics, and we have the change date. Again, we can configure this screen here and add more columns or hide columns we don't need here. And of course, we can filter. So this is the same as we have in every view. The second area we took a look on was the service level agreements. So here we could see I just showed you this full service outage, which is a service level agreement to which includes the services here. So down below you can see the services that had been assigned to this SLA, and that's how the SLA is working. So how fast you should take care of the ticket. So let's continue with the CMDB, so the asset management. What is the asset management about? The asset management, so let's take a look into the configuration item, in the configuration item overview. Our asset management is to, basically it is an inventory of products and under products. So you can use it for nearly everything. It is not restricted, and many customers believe in that, but it is not restricted to servers, so hardware and software. You can even use it for your car park or for your locations to administrate them. So you can make a list of of your subsidiaries. You can make a list of your car park, and you can manage these different assets. So it's a very, very powerful feature of OTRS, and you should really be aware of this and their opportunities, what you can do there. Since, let me show you an example, and I think it will be quite understandable. So right now we have 5 configuration items over here. We have, for example, Carl's working laptop, Fernando's working laptop, an ERP server, a database server, and the marketing multimedia streaming camera. As soon as I enter a configuration item, for example, in this case, it's Carl's working laptop, I can see additional information. I can see the incident state, so if it is currently operational or not. I will come back to this when we will add a CMDB item. We see the deployment state, and we see the versions of the CMDB item. So every time you are doing a change on the item, even if you change the incident state or the deployment state, it will be marked as a version. So you will always do like a shadow copy of the configuration item, and you will see it here down below. So of this configuration items, we have 2 versions. We have version 1. So as soon as we select one of the configuration items, we will see additional information. So what's the configuration item about, the deployment state, the vendor, so what's the vendor of the in this case laptop, the module, the type, the company, serial numbers, CPU, RAM, hard disks, capacities, and network adapters. So you can add any information as you like. So as an OTRS administrator, you can decide which data needs to be entered here and needs to be collected. So you can, of course, always add attachments as well to this configuration item. So for example, in this case, the invoice of the MacBook of this one has been added as an attachment. And through that, you can see, as I said, different information of your assets. And you can set them into relation. I will show you that in a few moments. Before I do so, let us add a new configuration item. You can do that, of course, through duplicating the configuration item, or through the action menu, or through, as I would like to do it now, the asset management. So add configuration item. And at first you need to select what class the configuration item is about. So if it is a computer, a hardware, a location, a network, or a software. So you can see that that's what I said before. It's an inventory of different objects or different assets. It's not restricted to hardware, computer, software. It is really, yeah, as you can see, you can use it for locations or a network, or as I said, a car park, or software licenses or contracts as well. So for now, we will choose the computer. We will name this computer, I don't know, Marco's laptop, for example. The incident state can always be incident or operational. So this is a very small state that only shows if the configuration items is currently operational or if there is an incident. So it should give you a very quick information about this configuration item. The deployment state is a more detailed information about the state of this configuration item. So it can be expired, it can be inactive, it can be in maintenance, it can be in a pilot phase, it can be planned, it can be in production, it can be in repairment, retired, in review, in test QA. So different deployment states that are configurable here as well. So as I showed you before, we can add the vendor, the model, the description of the configuration item, the type, the customer company, so we can assign it to a different, to a specific customer. So in this case, you can see I can assign it to the customer company I've created in one of our last sessions. We can assign it to an owner. So we can add the serial number. We can even add several CPUs, RAMs, or hard disks. So by clicking the plus symbol, you can decide how many hard disks I can add here. So you see we have 3 hard disks over here. And we can add a network adapter, different network adapters. So as I told you, you can design a lot of, or you can add a lot of information to your configuration item without even, need. So you can always decide which data should be asked. So which is mandatory and which data the agent can fill out or has not to fill it out. Okay, and as I said, we can add an attachment as well. So for example, the invoice of the configuration item or what else other attachment. As soon as we have added the configuration item, and this is the next thing I'd like to show you, we can decide, so if I go back to the configuration item overview, we can decide how these different configuration items are related to each other. Let's take a look into the ERP server. So right now, the ERP server is in a warning state, which means it is, we have currently, there seems to be a problem. And this is because the linked configuration item, which is the database server, is currently in an incident state. And since the database server is linked as required for, so the ERP server is required for the database server, it is affected to each other, which means you can just imagine it. Imagine we have an ERP server and there's a database server running on this ERP server. Of course, as soon as the ERP server has a problem and is not running properly, it will affect the database server as well. So we'll switch this one into an incident state because they are related to each other. So the database server is related to the ERP server it depends on. So that's why we can, for example, as soon as we switch here, so let's imagine let's go back to the database server and we will change it back to an incident operational. So now it is operational back again. And now you can see the ERP server is operational as well. So we have no warning anymore since the database is running. So why didn't the ERP server switch to an incident state? Because the ERP server does not depend on the database server. The database server is just a part of the ERP server. And that's why it's very important to understand these different relations. So when we have something that is dependable or depends on something and is just required for, it will affect the other settings. So in this case, the ERP server just switched to a warning state because its database server was not running anymore. But if we switch the ERP server now in an incident state, so let's do it, make it to incident, you will see now that the database server is now in a warning state because the database server depends on the ERP server, and that's why it is not usable anymore. So in general, the database server would be all right. So there won't be any issue on this server. But as soon as the ERP server is not working anymore, of course, the database server is affected as well, even though it would work properly. So that's why it would switch into the warning state here. So this is a very good example of having relations between configuration items. So you can always define different relations between, of course, locations, networks, and you can say, okay, we have a server which consists of a database server, hard disk drives and everything. And this depends on location, and the location depends on other subsidiaries. So you can make a very big and complex map over there in the asset management. And you can build a very complex construct through the CMDB. So you can see quite a lot of options here. So what links are possible? If I add a new link, I would like to show you. So let's just select randomly one of the configuration items, I don't know. And there are different relations here. So we have an alternative to, connected to, depends on, required for, includes, part of, or relevant to. All these states are just, there's no, let's say, function behind it. It is just a better way of understanding your construct. So for example, if you have a location and or if you have a server, maybe this is a better example. If you have a server and you have different parts in your server, so for example a hard disk drive and an RAM and CPU, this would be, so these elements of these hardware components would be part of the server. And the other way around, so it's always, of course, linked to each other. The other way around would be includes. So includes, the server includes these parts, and the parts itself are part of the server. So these relations always are vice versa. And as I said, they are just just for a logical way to understand the construct of your CMDB, so of your asset management. So CMDB is called the Configuration Management Database. And as I told you before, all these different items are called configuration items. So a configuration item can be a computer, it can be an, yeah, like I said, a car park, a car. So an element of the CMDB is a configuration item. So one single item of your database. We can have relations between these different elements, and we can have different versions of this element. That's it for the service management and asset management. So the next topic I'd like to talk about is the customer management. The customer management is about creating customers or creating customer users. So as soon as we click, for example, on Create Customer, we can choose a data source or a data source where we would like to create the customer in. So for example, we would like to create the customer in our database backend. And in this case, you just need to be aware that it's of course possible to attach different backends or to connect different backends to your OTRS. So there are different possibilities that can be added and can be linked to your backend. So different backends that can be connected. So you can switch between local database. So in this case, we have the OTRS database backend. You can switch between an LDAP database or an open LDAP database. So there are different backends that can be attached here. The customer is always the name of the customer itself, which means, for example, we have I would like to create the customer with Microsoft Corporation. This is the name of the customer. Of course, you can now select a custom ID, which needs to be very unique. So in my case, or I would always recommend to use the domain, because a domain is unique but still readable. And I think this is a very big advantage in comparison to numbers, because some customers of us uses always different customer numbers, so really customer IDs. But from my perspective, this is not very helpful or useful if you would like to search for a certain customer ID and you don't know the number of this customer. So I would always recommend to use a domain, because this is unique but still readable. The next thing I'd like to show is the address. So you can search, in this case, for example, I'm searching for the Microsoft office in San Francisco. And I would just copy this address for a quick. So in my case, you have the Market Street here. The zip code. City is San Francisco. And the country, of course, is America. So the United States of America. And we could add an URL, for example, Microsoft.com. Let's check the website. So in this case, we can just copy paste it. And we could add a comment if we would like to. So now we create this customer here, and we can add a customer user. So for example, as soon as we click on the action menu again and add a customer user, we can select the database backend. And now you will see why it was important to first create the customer before you create the customer user. Since the customer user always requires, since it is a mandatory field, a customer ID. So as soon as I, for example, now type in Microsoft, you will find the right customer ID and now can add the customer user. So let's do here, Mr. Bill Gates. Here's the email address. I will just use a trash mail address right now because I don't want to disturb Mr. Gates in his daily business. We can add an, I don't know, a phone number. I will add randomly one, and mobile number. I will just type in some numbers, and we can even add the address of this, so this private address of this customer user. I will skip that for a second. The login credentials are sufficient since so they are mandatory and important here because the customer user needs it to be able to log in to the interface, to the customer interface, the external one. So you can set the password for him, or he can even click on the password reminder function to let himself reminded by the password for his account. So there are different options possible as well. The password function can be left empty, so then he can use the reminder function, or you will set the password for him. So then it will of course be set it. There are some requirements of this password. In this case, it's 12 characters. This can be defined by the OTRS administrator, but of course, it always needs to be defined in advance. Then I would like, so let me just clear the password here. At this point, I would like to create the customer. Okay, let's call it Bill Gates because the username was already moved into. And now we have both. And now I would like to show you the customer information. So the customer information consists of two areas. We have the customer user and the customer itself. So we started, if you remember, with the customer, so the name of the customer, the address, and we can see different information over here. So we can see, we can go to the customer, which will gives us just the customer information. We can see more detailed information about the tickets that's available in this customer. We can see which customer users are linked to this customer. We can see configuration items that has been linked to the customer, different escalation tickets, and so on. We can see the map, so we can view it on Google Maps to find the address. We can use the web to enter the website. We can even use social platforms. So in OTRS 8, there's a social media integration, which gives you the opportunity to communicate with your customers, for example, even through Facebook or Xing or LinkedIn. So different portals where you can communicate with your customers. Again, you will see a statistic about the customer, so closed tickets, open tickets, and just different information about the customer and its customer users. And if I go back to the user Bill Gates, you will see the same for the customer user as well on the left side. So we'll see his time zone for this customer user right now and which language he has selected, which is by default, of course, the UTC and English time zone and language. We can start a chat with the customer user. We can very quickly create an email ticket or a phone ticket. So as soon as we are in the view, we can create this one. and now the customer user will already be filled out. So as you can see, it has already been entered. Same is for the phone ticket, and we can edit this customer user. So right from this screen, there will be a possibility to change data of this customer user. Same with social media integration. And down below, you have even more customer user information, which includes his phone number. There will be the address if you have the private address. And yeah, just different information down below. And of course, you will see his open and closed tickets as well, and see all tickets of the customer itself. So these are all information about the customer management. So I showed you how to add the customer user. So there are the customer and the customer user. So there are two possibilities. You can add it via the customer management in the burger menu. So on the main menu on the upper left corner, we can create them. We can do it via the customer relations in the action menu in a very quick way. And of course, you can always view your customer if you add an organizer item. I've showed you that in the second webinar. So when we talked about the personalization, you saw how to add these organizer items. And now you can see I've added the Microsoft Corporation here. And of course, I can view it there too. Same for customer user. So that's everything I would like to show you about the customer management. When we go, of course, into the customer, so if we switch to the Microsoft Corporation again and see the customer users, there are these actions as well. So we have the chat symbol, we have the ticket create symbol, and we have the quick edit symbol. So it's the same here too. And that's it for the customer management. The last point I would like to show in this session today is the search function. So in OTRS, we now have this magnifier over here in the toolbar, and this is our dynamic search. So we can use this magnifier in each and every view where we are currently in and search for different terms. So you can view it a bit as Googling, or just like an algorithm who will search your whole database, which includes every area, so every business object, which can be a ticket, which can be a knowledge base article, which can be a service, which can be basically everything. So you see, as soon as I type in printer, for example, we don't even find results for appointments, but we even find results for the tickets. So let me show all. And now we see all different objects, all articles where we have printers included, and all tickets where we have printer included. We can even filter for certain document types. So now we can say, okay, we are not interested in tickets. We would like to see all appointments with printer. So you will get the result, and you can even add more filter criteria. So as soon as you enter a filter, another one will be added as well. So same thing with ticket. You will see the ticket and the included articles where this word is in, and then you can start another filter. So for example, you would like to see it from the owner, and then you can decide, for example, Marco Manager, and then the result list will be filtered again, or you can say, I would like to see a specific state, so the ticket should be still open, and or in general in an closed state, so you are searching for a closed ticket or closed unsuccessful ticket. So as I said, different possibilities what you can filter here for. Same goes with the lock state. So for example, if we would like to see if the ticket is currently locked or unlocked, this would be addable here as well. So if we would like to use it as a filter criteria, this would be possible too. Another thing I'd like to show in this search here is that you can, of course, always add filter presets. So if you have a specific search which you would like to use, for example, you are always searching for the printer expression, so printer term in terms of appointments, because you would like to organize all on-site appointments. You can search and use this as a filter preset. So just insert a preset name, for example, printer appointments, save it, and there you go. You will have it as a selectable filter preset. Another thing I'd like to show you here in the dynamic search is that you can use the reference to help refine your search. There are different search parameters which you can use to detailedly define your search. So you can use, for example, wildcards, you can use regular expressions, you can do ranges, min to max, you can make use Boolean operators and or not, do not include. So you can make a very big combination of files to exclude some filter criteria. So as you can see, there's a lot possible with the dynamic search over here, and it is very dynamic and very fast in its usage. So the performance is very high of this use of this search. So because you can really easily just type in a specific term or word and you will find all solutions about this one. So when I show all, we can do the same thing. So as you just saw, we can always add filter criteria over here. And this could be the same thing if you do it for certain lists. So if you add for example, a widget to your dashboard, to your personal dashboard, which we saw before, and you would like to search for certain criteria, or you do the same for a list, you will do it via filter criteria. So we have learned that in the last sessions. For example, I can click here in the configuration and add filter criteria. This is the one way to search for specific items and business objects. And the other way is to use the overall dynamic search over here, the dynamic finder, to search for different expressions like network, and it will show you appointments, items and services, and tickets. So basically in each and every area of OTRS. So basically of each and every business object. That's it from my side for this session. So thank you very much for your patience and your that you were listening. And I hope it was very helpful for you, and I'm very thankful for participating.
All right, Luca, thank you very much for the very a great webinar going over OTRS 8 and management areas, the knowledge management, service management, customer management, asset management, and the search. If there are any questions after this webinar that you would like to have more information on, please feel free to reach out to sales@otrs.com. Thank you.